All right, so to start with, I'm having everybody just put in e to the third on their calculator, and I know some kids are having trouble finding it. I'm going to give you, here are some of the ways I have seen it on calculators. Sometimes I see an e to the x button. If you borrowed one from me, it's got an e to the x right above the ln key, which is kind of near the top. See, I'm pointing to it here. It's kind of near the top on the right. See the little e to the x button? If you borrowed one from me, it's right here. Now, if you borrowed one from me and you hit that button, it brings up e on the screen. Then you got to tell it what power you want. And so you say 3. It doesn't raise it up like a nice little power like it should. But if you did it right, whichever calculator you have, e to the third, on my calculators, I just type e and then I type 3 and then it says 20.08. Raise your hand if you got 20.08. Okay, good. Now, some people are lying right now. I know they are because they just don't want me to bother them. So I'm going to ask you to now put in e to the fourth. If you knew how to do that, you should know how to do it again. And I'm going to come around and check. If you have the right number up on your screen, I know you can do it. If you can't do it, you just need to ask me, and I will help you. I'm going to pause while we make sure everybody can get e to the fourth. A few kids are still struggling on this, so we're just going to do one last one. Everybody do e to the fifth, and then I'll ask you to compare with the kid next to you. Just making sure you get this, because if you can't do e to a power, you're going to get every problem wrong today. This is really critical. So compare e to the fifth. Hold up your calculator screen side by side with the kid next to you, and you'll be able to tell if your answer and their answer are the same.
I still don't know it.
I'll tell you in a moment. For right now, just compare with the kid next to you.
Were we supposed to know kind of already?
Nope. E is a new thing for you. I'm just making sure you can put it in the calculator first because it's really tricky. All right, so I'm doing it on my calculator. I go e to the power of, and then I type in a 5, so E5, and it is 148. Now, somebody asked, what is it? I totally get. You'd want to know. What the heck is this thing? It is 2.718. Why don't we just type in that? Well, because E actually is a decimal that goes on and never repeats. It's kind of like pi. Do you get that pi goes on forever and never repeats? E also does. And when you do E is when you're doing populations. So for example, let's say I have 25 goats. I type that in and I say times E to the rate times the time. Notice those are in the power. And see how there's an E to a power right here? If you didn't know how to do e to the power, which again, you didn't know when you walked in probably, now you do. And so if I can just tell you how to figure out this part, you'll be done. You just take the starting amount, you times it by e, and then you put it to a power. I just told you that e was 2.718. If you wanted to, you'd get every problem right today if you just put in 2.718 instead of e. But frankly, you just should want to know how to do it right. Using the E key puts in this number plus even more of the decimal. So that, if you've learned how to put in e to a power now, yay. Now this rate goes here, and if I said a rate is 2.5, that would mean what percent? If I said 2.5%, you know what decimal you'd put in for that? I'm gonna ask that again. If I said the rate was 2.5% growth, then you don't type in 2.5. Yes. Good guess. Nope. You know, Josh? What do you think?
0.0.
Yes, that is what you type in. You don't have to type 0 point because the calculator technically doesn't even pick up the first 0. But do you get that 0.025? Means 2.5%. We're going to do a couple like that. What if I said 1.5%? You would type in point. Oh, here's a classic mistake. 0.15. No, I didn't say that. What do you type in?
0.015.
Yes, notice we moved the decimal over 2 spots. Okay? So what if I said 16%? Move the decimal over 2 spots. What would you put in? 0.16.
0.16.
Yep. That's that. You catching on? You move it over 2 spots. Okay. All right, so back to this problem. If I have 25 of some kind of an animal, it could be like cats, could be rabbits, whatever, and you times it by e to a power, this e has this weird ability to figure out populations. So here's your equation for the day. A equals P times E to the R times T. P times E to the R times T. So if I tell you the numbers, you're just going to put it in the calculator. It's really pretty easy. That's why we started with putting it in the calculator, because if I just tell you the numbers, you stick it in the calc. So easy. I know there's a power involved, which scares people, but here's one more thing. Always start here. Always do the power first, and then do e to the power like I just taught you. And the last thing you do is times by the p. Okay, what the heck is a p? The p is the principal. And the principal is like the important thing. In a school, the principal, probably the most important person. He really is the boss. If he calls me down to his office, I'm like, oh crap, what's going on? What am I in trouble for? Or every now and then it's for something nice, but okay, if he calls you down to the office, he calls you down to the office, you gotta admit, you'd be nervous, like, why does he want to talk to me? So the principal is like really important at a school. In the problem we have today, it's the important number. So sometimes we have like 10,000 llamas. That's the important number. It's just the starting number. You start with that. And then you'd say times E. That's E is always in every problem today. That's why we started with it. To the R, which is a rate. And if I said 2.5%, I would get it wrong right now. That's not how you put in 2.5%. And the time is like, let's say it's 3 years. You put a 3 there. This is the most common screw up. If I said 2.5%, what should I put there?
0.025.
Yes. Move the decimal over 2 spots. Now you don't have to have a 0 in front, but you have to have 0.025. This 0 here is optional. Don't have to have that. Okay? All right, so let's do one. I want you to actually see this. Everybody write this on your paper. A equals P times E to the RT. And then underneath it, I'll tell you the things and you put them in. Your amount will be, I'm going to use my daughter as an example again because she raises cats. She's got, I think it's 6 queens right now. 6 times E to the R. If cats are allowed to breed and there's no like predators that come in and eat them and stuff, they really grow pretty fast. You get lots of cats really fast. Okay, so the rate here is going to be 30%. Do you know what to put for that? 30%. And the time is going to be just 4 years. 30%. Now, if you typed 30 right here, you're totally wrong. What should you have put?
0.3.
0.3. And then the time? 4. What did I say to start with?
The up ones.
Yes, the up ones. So 0.3 times 4. Do that first. Now you've got a decimal. Now do e to that decimal.
You want it to be rounded to.
Good question. We'll round at the end.
Oh, that's
We'll round to whole cats.
So like, what do we like?
So
round
do you
to?
tell me, we'll do it in a second. What did you get when you did 0.3 times 4? Did you get 1.2? Okay, so now it's 6 times e to the 1.2. And I started with this because it's so complicated, but by now, you're supposed to know how to do that.
What do you not get?
E to the 1.2 was 3.3, and then I times it by 6. 19.9, would you agree that rounds to 20? Cool. Then the amount of cats is 20. Did you do e to the 1.2 and then times it by 6? I think maybe you messed that up.
Okay, so that's, what do we round to? It says 3.320.
Don't round that number. Just take that number and times it by 6.
How do I do that on the calculator?
You have it on your screen, right? Just say times 6. Enter.
Times 6. 19.9. Oh,
There, that's the 19.9, and that rounds to 20. That's why it's 20.
I didn't know you could just press it.
Yeah, now you learned something new about the calculators. Okay, so let's do one more like that. I'll write it. You don't have to write it, but you should write what goes in. This time it's about llamas. There's a llama farm that we used to drive past all the time, and I think they're really funny looking. And so the P is going to be the number of llamas that they started with. It seriously looked like there was about 30 llamas out there, so it was a fair amount. Times E, it's always E, which, by the way, I told you what this is. It's 2.718, but I'd use the E button on your calculator because it's way faster. To the R, if I looked up llama growth uninhibited, I could probably find it on Google, like how many you'd get if you just left llamas alone and fed them and no predators. Let's say it's 25% growth. I'm going to write 25%. You better use the right decimal. And then for the time, let's say 5 years.
Wait, how many? 5 years?
Yep. So for the rate, did you put 0.25 times the time, which is 5 years? And then did you do this first?
Wait, and then multiply by 30. 104.
Did you guys, for the power, did you get 1.25?
Yeah.
Okay, then you're on the right track.
Alright, this actually makes sense.
Did you get 104.7?
Yep.
Sweet. I'm going to round that to 105. We'd have about 105 llamas if there was no predators and they stayed healthy and all that good stuff. Okay. You see how you use this formula? You just stick the numbers in, you multiply it out. Now, I am aware that there's probably a few kids who are hiding right now and they're like, I don't get what he's doing and I don't know what these right answers are. So I want to do one more where you have to compare it on your calculator. You're just going to hold out your calculator to the kid next to you. And if there's a kid who doesn't get it, if you can help them, awesome. Otherwise, I will walk around and help them. So here's the last one. Ready? Be ready to show your calculator to the kid next to you. A equals P. Can you finish it without me saying it? E-R-T. I like to think of it as PERT. PERT. Okay. Then, this one's going to be money. But I bet you'll figure out what to put where. Your Aunt Tilly died and she left you money. You got 10 grand. It happens sometimes. You got this distant relative who dies and they say, split it up amongst the whole family. So then you get this little bit of money. Yay. So you get $10,000. Times, always E. And let's say let's say that you invested in Tesla stock and you get 20% growth on it. And then the time, let's say we do it for 25 years. You leave it alone for 25 years and it gets 20% growth. I'm aware that's extremely unlikely to get that good of growth for that long, but let's say it happens. 25% growth for 20 years. Sorry, I said it wrong. 20% growth for 25 years. Do you remember me saying always do the power first? We will check this when we get back from lunch.
Come on. No.
Okay, so when we left to lunch, we were taking our $10,000 and timesing by E to the, and this was 20% growth times 25 years. So if I go, I'm doing the power first like I always have told you to do. 0.2, which is the same as 0.20, times 25, that's 5. So I'm going to replace that with a 5. 10,000 times e to the 5th. Notice I did the power first. Now I'm going to go e to the 5th. Now on this calculator I have an e button, and then I'm going to go to the 5th, and this becomes 148.4. 13. Let's leave it at that. And I'm going to times it by 10,000. And I get 148413. And technically I rounded there, so there. It's about $1 million. Okay, so this is using A equals P times E to the RT, and always start with your power, then put E to that power, and then times it by P at the end. That's my opinion, best way to enter it. And the assignment today is a worksheet. The first couple of questions are just things like this. Is this growth or decay? And as long as that's more than 1, it's growth. And on ones where it's like this, then it's decay because it's less than 1. And then that's pretty much it. Just do the worksheet for today. I did allow the kids to skip the last problem.